All right. Welcome back to the Travi Wavi. I'm your affable host, Travis Eason, and we are coming to you live in the 325 from beautiful, historic downtown Abilene, the storybook capital of America. And I've got another wonderful guest for you all today, and I'm really excited to hear all about his story and his adventure. Please welcome with me the chair of the ACU Art Department, Robert Green. Welcome.
Good morning.
Really glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
I've enjoyed our pre-show discussion and our chits and our chats, and let's go ahead and ask the question that I ask most of my guests. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have three siblings,
Okay.
all younger than me.
Okay.
I have a brother, a couple of years younger. I have a sister that's 6 years younger than me, and I have another sister that's 11 years younger than me.
Okay. Are
Yep.
they still in Texas?
They are still all in
Okay.
Texas, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
very good.
yeah.
And when did you start teaching art at ACU?
I began in the year 1985, teaching it.
1985.
1985, yes.
What is that, 30 years?
40 years ago, yes.
Oh, my. That's quite a while.
Is quite a while, yes.
And when you think back about 40 years at ACU, has this been time well spent?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Time well spent. It's
Good.
changed a lot. I mean, the students that we teach change.
Mm-hmm.
The university itself changes. But yeah, it's been a great adventure, and it's been very meaningful work.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of things in your 40-year tenure there, but just the last couple years, you've been moved into the role of chair.
Yes, correct. Yes. I've
How's
been
that been
chair
for you?
for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a very good move for me, and I think it's been very good for the department as well.
Good.
So it was a late career move. I had a previous chair named Mike Wiggins, a trusted colleague who stepped away from the chair's role, and I felt like I was that my circumstances has changed so that I was well placed to become chair and felt like I had the skill set to do that well. And so I accepted that role and have been very happy in that role.
That's good. Are there any changes that you've made to the department or that you would like to make while you're in that position, that leadership position?
So some changes we've already made is that we've made our homecoming time at the university more of a showcase for the department itself. So
Okay.
we've tried to have important exhibitions in the gallery. We've had receptions for the artists to show in that and for our alumni. We've also begun doing some marketplaces. The first year we invited some ceramic artists who had studied at ACU, and they did a pottery sale. And this last year we had a marketplace where students and faculty and other people sold their artistic wares.
Very cool.
So that's been a change. Some other changes that I didn't really initiate but been really important is we've done some remodeling in the Don Morris Center, which hadn't changed in almost 40 years. And so the space looks radically different. It looks fantastic. We converted, renovated a classroom space that's our lecture hall. So anyway, a number of different new initiatives that have really served us well.
Very cool. And you've always been a painting professor. Is
Correct.
that true?
Yes, so my MFA was in painting.
Okay.
That was my area. But when I came to ACU, it was a small faculty, and so versatility was the order of the day. It was needed. So over the years that I've been there, I've taught, I think, 37 different courses in the Department of Art and Design. So everything from design, different levels of drawing. I was the primary ceramics teacher for a long time. Taught painting, all levels of painting, art history, things like that. But yes, throughout all that time, I taught painting consistently. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so one of your former students is a friend of mine, and she was very eager to have you come on the Travi Wavi, which I think is a great choice.
Yes.
But the kind of onus behind that was because you've just accomplished an international trip with American artists and Chinese artists coming together, and I'm going to let you explain all this and unpack all this, but this just recently happened. You just got home like 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And how long were you in China for?
14 days.
For 14 days.
14 days in China.
But even going back to the beginning, this is something that's been started 5 or 6 years ago?
At least 4.5 years
Okay.
ago. So I had been doing some personal artwork that was inspired by historic Chinese landscape paintings. And I had a colleague at ACU by the name of Dr. Berlin Fang, and he worked in the Adams Center, and he was a technology specialist. And so I had been going to him for help with course management systems and things like that, computer-related interaction with students. And he was originally from China, and was a trusted colleague. And so one day I said, I don't know if you know this or not, but I had been doing some paintings that are inspired by Chinese art. And so he looked at what I was doing, and he gave me this book. He said, here's a book you might enjoy looking at. This is a book by an artist who lives and works in the hometown that he came from in China, Tongjiang, China. So he gave me this book. I was completely unfamiliar with the artist. It was a book of drawings, and the artist's name was Shang, Mr. Shang. So I looked at the book and felt a real kind of kinship with the work that he did there, and felt like that I should reach out to him in some way. So I asked Berlin if I wrote a letter to Mr. Shang, would he translate it for me so he could understand, because he doesn't speak in English. So I wrote him a letter. I made took some photographs of some sketches I had done. So his work seemed to be like plein air sketching, and so I sent him some sketches, and we began a conversation, and I told him that I admired his work and would like to see more, and he wanted to see more of my work inspired by Chinese art. So a conversation developed. And then we hit it off so well that I suggested, our work is both inspired by the same Chinese models, and our work is in dialogue. And we're in dialogue. We should have an exhibition.
Yeah.
And so the two of us decided that the best scenario for that is that we'd have an exhibition in America and we'd have an exhibition in China, so that we'd introduce each other's work in both countries. So that's where all of this started, and my trip to China, and so I began working towards making that happen. And it's a very long story, and there were many pitfalls, and things didn't go well, and COVID happened, and shut down just about everything. So anyway, some recent developments happened that seemed to move things along for the exhibition. So the first of those was that Berlin Fang reached out to me. I was about ready to give up. Things weren't going well, and he said, would you like to come to Dallas and meet with the Minister of Culture and Tourism from the Chinese Embassy in Washington, D.C.? She and a delegation are coming down for the U.S. Women's soccer match versus China, and they're going to come down for that. Would you like to come and talk about your project with them? And I said, absolutely, let's do it. So I made a trip. They hosted me, paid my way into the game. We watched the game together, and we had a discussion, and I developed a notebook to show her my concept, Mr. Shang's work and my work, and she was just magnanimous about this sounds fantastic. I'm fully in support. She admired my work and admired the idea. Berlin had shared with her my letters, my original letters that I sent to Mr. Shang, which I did not know, but she told me that she was very moved by my letters and that she was very moved by the work that I shared with her, and she said, I want to support the effort. So sometime later, over a year later, a man that I did not know named Mr. Jai Yu, visited her at the Chinese Embassy in Washington, D.C., and he was interested in exhibitions of this type with American and Chinese artists as well. And so he had a discussion with her, and she said, if you're interested in this, she said, you should talk to Robert Greene. You could reach him through Dr. Berlin Fang. So in November, I think late November, early December, I received communication from him and from Dr. Fang saying, we want to make this happen, but we want it to be a bigger deal. Oh, cool. We don't want it to be just your work, just one artist. We want it to be many American artists and many Chinese artists. Can you help us do that? So I began assembling a group of artists that I knew, that I respected, and asked them, would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to travel to China? Because that's what he wanted. And found a group of artists and proposed those to him, and it was a go.
I love it.
So that's kind of the background. And so we traveled over in May. I flew over on the 10th, and we were there for 14 days. And I went with a colleague, Kenny Jones, who teaches with me in the department. And another one of the artists is named Alan Smith, and he is from, he works in the Medford, Oregon area. And there were some other artists included as well, some of which could travel to China and some not. So anyway, so that's what took us over to China for this really interesting experience.
And so how many American artists traveled with you
So
China?
two other American artists traveled with me, Kenny Jones and Alan Smith. But Mr. Jai invited some Chinese American artists that he knew that he wanted to represent America as well. Mr. Wang from the New York City area, and a Mr. Zhao from San Francisco. And I didn't know either of these artists. We met them after we arrived in China, and they were great people and great artists, and we really enjoyed traveling with them and sharing all these experiences with them. I also invited, and Dr. Berlin Fang knew about these artists. So there's a local artist named Jing Yi who is the owner. He goes by Oliver, but he's the owner of Sunrise Chinese Food. And he included art as well. And he has a gallery in Los Angeles that is run by a woman of Chinese heritage named Kiki Lu. And she also included work in the exhibition. So she was able to travel to China for a very short period of time because she had other commitments. But Jing Yi was unable because of his responsibilities to do that. He also had a simultaneous exhibition in Dallas, I understand, which was very, very successful while we were over there. Yeah.
So this sort of cultural exchange, if you will, is sort of one of the first that we know of. Is that true?
That's correct, yes. So we were told after we arrived there that nothing like this had happened in a very, very long time, and that's one of the reasons why Mr. Jai was so motivated to make this happen. He wanted better relationships between Chinese people and American people. He felt that art transcends borders, and that it speaks to people everywhere, and that through this art we could bring our two cultures together. And so his belief, his vision, he is a visionary, his vision for this and the way that he pulled this off was just absolutely amazing. And so yes, we were amazed that we were treated like a political delegation from the U.S., even though we're, humble artists here in the U.S. And yes, that we were utterly convinced by by just their warm greeting and the way that we were treated, that this was something incredibly important and historic, and that had, to some degree, the endorsement of the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C.
Which is
behind it.
Wildly important and crazy.
Yes, absolutely.
And neat
Yes,
and
yes.
fascinating. So what a unique experience you got to. So you fly to China. You're welcomed there. Your fellow American Chinese artists are there, and then you're ushered on a tour of various different things. What was the next thing that happened when you were there?
So we arrived in Shanghai, spent a night there, and then traveled by train to Nanjing, which is where the exhibition was going to be. And that's where we first met Mr. Jai and other people associated with the Jiangsu Chinese Painting Society, which was an organizing group for this exhibition. And they immediately got us into our hotel, and we had shared an evening meal together at a facility that is sponsored by Bentley Car Company. It's called the Bentley Club. And we had a reception outside, and then a fabulous meal inside. And then the next day, they began taking us on tours. We went into the city of Nanjing, and visited Air Force Museum and a museum to the pilots, the Chinese pilots and American pilots who were killed during the World War II era. And we visited a emperor's mausoleum, and it was just an amazing beginning to our journey.
A lot of history.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the food was incredible.
The food was incredible, yes. The food was, like over the top, right?
Every day, every meal.
Every meal. We never had a dish twice. If you can imagine that, over 5 days, 3 meals a day, and we never had the same meal twice. And some meals included as many as 38 different entrees.
38
Yes,
different
yes,
entrees,
yes.
Robert.
I've been to a Michelin restaurant before and didn't have as much food as we had in China.
So
yes.
are you still full?
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
I don't know that I could eat 38 entrees in a single meal.
I don't know how we did it,
That's
but
wild.
the schedule kept us moving, and so somehow we were able to do it.
So when you were in China and traveling around on these tours, how many people were in your group?
So there were typically at least 5 or 6 people that were with us. So Kenny Jones, Alan Smith, and I, the 2 American artists, Mr. Wong and Mr. Zhao, were with us. There was another artist that traveled with us for part of it named Mr. Zhang. He was from China, but from a different area, so he traveled with us. Mr. Jai typically traveled with us. His wife is also an artist and traveled with us as we made our different tours. And in each trip, we met new people, and so sometimes they traveled with us as well. So we made trips to into Nanjing. We made a trip to the city of Jintan and met some local artists and literary officials there. We met the mayor. We met a businessman who was heavily involved with the arts and toured an archaeological museum and went to a museum to the famous Chinese mathematician Hua, and painted together with the new Chinese artists we met. And then another day we went to the Juan paper factory, and we need to talk more about that in a minute. And then later we went, after we kind of departed with our official hosts, we made a trip to the city of Anqing, where we went to Anqing Normal University and were greeted by the fine art faculty there and given tours of their historical sites, and also met with their faculty and talked about our different educational approaches, and created a painting with them as well.
Cool.
And then spent another day in the city of Tongcheng, where we met with local officials, and we were hosted by a woman who runs a liquor business there, and who is I understand, an international and Chinese influencer, and she went with us everywhere and documented everything we did. It was amazing. Yeah.
So you were basically given the rock star treatment.
We
entire
were,
time.
yes, we were, and in the farther away from Nanjing and Shanghai we got, the more people noticed us, right? Because we were out of the ordinary. They weren't used to seeing American citizens, so we were watched, we were filmed. We had people come up and want to take selfies with us, wanted to greet us, and they were just as kind as possible. So yeah, in Tongcheng we were definitely followed around by a kind of entourage of people who were curious about why we were there and what we were doing. So
Robert Greene, international artist, rock star.
yes,
That's
yes,
great.
yes. And now I'm back home.
You're back in Abilene.
Yeah, now I'm back in Abilene.
Who's that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. What a cool experience. So let's talk more about the paper company that you got to visit.
Yes,
because
this
they
was-
still make this by hand.
Yes, absolutely. So we were told in advance that we were going to visit this, and we just didn't have any idea. We were told that we were invited by the paper company to make a tour of the facility, and we thought, hey, fantastic, But we had no idea that they were making paper by hand and were following traditional methods that date back over 1,000 years. This company is literally the reason for why Chinese art is what it is. It was a collaboration between the making of paper, the use of ink and brushes, and the unique culture that contributed to what we know of Chinese painting today, especially traditional Chinese painting. So
is this rice paper?
this is a combination of rice and tree bark.
Okay.
So we were introduced to, they actually use the refuse of rice. So rice is taken to, right, they use the stalk, which is typically waste, and they gather that stalk and bring it and process it so that it can be used for making paper. And then there's a very particular type of tree which they use the bark from, and it has to be cut off of the bark, off of the tree, and in very, very thin, thin pieces, and then that's processed. And they ultimately end up creating, if you will, a slurry of that material. And then they have these special bamboo screens that they've developed. They say that creating just the screen alone takes about two to 3 months to create one screen by hand. Very thin pieces of bamboo strips that have been woven and sewn together in a particular way. That's dipped into this slurry a couple of times, and the water's decanted off, and you have a piece of paper. And they flop it over onto a stack, and they go back to the vat again to make another one. And there's, in the factory facility, there's multiple vats with 2 people making paper one after another.
So there's not a pressing process. It's just a dipping on a screen, pulling out that pulp slurry
Yes.
enough that it has its thickness, and then that they just dry that, and then that's it.
They flip it over, and it starts the drying process, and then then it's in a big stack of paper. It's ultimately taken after a while to another facility where they further dry the paper. They peel it off one piece of paper, thin piece of paper at a time, and mount it. They have vertical heating, like metal heating units, and they place the paper up there, and they use sort of a soft brush to brush it on to flatten it out, and that heat further takes the water out of it. Then it's peeled off and put in a stack again for further processing.
That's great. So I'm assuming that the paper's coming out of the initial slurry vat relatively white in color.
Yes.
So, like, is there a bleaching process involved? Like
I don't think there's
chemical?
any
It's
bleaching
just,
process
this is the
at all.
broken down fiber bits, and it's good enough. That's
Yes,
so cool.
and whatever happens on that bamboo screen, the paper separates immediately. They just flip this. It's kind of a loose structure, and they flip it over. And there may be video that shows this. They flip it over onto the stack, and the piece of paper immediately comes off, and they flip it over and put it back in the vat again.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So, and this is just I'm assuming just a giant warehouse with lots of vats and lots of bamboo
Yes,
mats.
so
and
we
people
went to
coming and
literally
going.
3 different locations. So we went to their headquarters. They have a city headquarters building where we were greeted. We had discussions. We created a work of art there on the paper itself. They served us meals there. All of the food was grown within their facilities and their structure. And then we went to a mountainside site, which is where they process the rice plant, and where they treat the bark of the tree. And we saw them placing these products up on the top of the hill. They had completely deforested the top of the hill and put down stones, and they lay this out on the top of the hill for it to dry, and it's carried up on the backs of human beings.
So just
up to
real
the top.
labor. Yeah,
Real human
real
labor. Yeah, real human labor. And then after it's dried sufficiently, it's brought back down and processed further, and then it goes to the third site, which was the plant that you were talking about, which is where we got to go in and see them actually making the paper and the from the slurry that they had created.
cool.
So.
Have you ever experienced anything like that before?
Never.
No.
Never in my life. Yeah, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was really interesting, and this was the historic part of it as well, is that when we got to the plant site where they're making the paper, there was a gate, a security gate, and they told us no one goes beyond this gate. This is proprietary information. We have spies that want to get into this plant, but today you're going to be allowed to go in and see this process personally.
What a gift.
And they said the last time anyone was even at that plant site was 1982.
Okay.
The American artist Robert Rauschenberg went to China. He was looking for a particular kind of paper, and their paper didn't suit his purposes, but they made a paper for him that was 8 times as thick as their regular paper, so he could create it. But they said he was not allowed to see what you're going to see today. This was just mind-blowing for us.
What a gift.
So they opened the gate, we walked through, they walked us through and showed us all the processes to the place where they actually cut the paper, and they examine each sheet by hand to make certain that there are no flaws in the paper whatsoever before it's packaged and sold.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that you brought some paper home with you.
They gifted us with some paper. So
Good.
we bought a box that has a roll of paper in each of it, and they have two different kinds. They have a raw version and another version, which is has a different, I guess, a different textural surface to it. I have yet to be able to experiment with that yet, but yes, they sent us back with a box of paper,
Very
two
fun.
boxes of paper.
And have
yeah.
you played with any of it yet?
I have not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
When you paint generally, what sort of materials do you like to use?
So in my work, I'm painting on paper. I've been doing that for a number of years, and but I'm painting on paper that's created by, right, it's a industrial process, right? And depending on the type of paper, the texture, sometimes I prepare that paper with gesso, and sometimes I paint directly on the paper. So, and I'm painting in acrylic paint. So the way in which I paint is more, while there are transparencies, it's more opaque than what you typically see in Chinese painting. And so there's, when we were making paintings with them, we were painting on that paper. We were painting in ink and with gouache in ways that are really kind of traditional. So I had to make, adaptations in order to be able to paint in a way that was effective on that fabulous paper. Yeah.
And then there was also a tour of a brush factory?
Yes. So after our visit at the paper factory, we went to a museum where they showed examples of works that had been made on the paper throughout the centuries, and they also had a space in that museum where they demonstrate the paper making process for people who come to the museum who can't go to the plant. And then we went to a master brush maker's studio. It looked like a strip mall in a way, but here's this magical place. This the person who greeted us was sixth generation brush maker, master brush maker, and his work was fabulous. And he gifted us with some brushes, and we got to watch as they created brushes one brush at a time. We watched them processing the natural hairs with combs and other materials in order to create each brush by hand. Yeah.
What is the preferred animal hair for that
So
style of brush?
I remember that one of them is fox hair, and I'm drawing a blank on what the other is.
but
Fox was one, and of course each hair has a different capacity for like stiffness versus softness or absorptiveness, like how much liquid will it hold. And so the brushes are each designed for a different purpose. And the brushes they were making while we were there were brushes that had, I want to say, fox hairs in the very center, but were surrounded by a softer hair around the outside. So very specialized, so that you could get a very, very fine line with the tip of the brush, but then you could make a broader mark by pressing harder or just laying the brush out more fully on the paper.
When I watched some of the videos that you sent over, and it just currently as a practicing tattoo artist, I'm very keen on some of the more Asian style, right?
Right.
Of moving that brush across the piece,
Right.
and it seems like it almost seems counterintuitive, but like most of the motion's coming from the shoulder.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just really fascinating to
Yes,
watch. I
yes.
haven't gotten to play like that at all, but I look forward to doing that. at
You're
some
very
point in the future.
observant. Yeah. So it's the same thing that I teach my students in beginning drawing. So many students want to do this with the wrist, and I'm saying no. The wrist stays not stiff, but it stays stationary, and the movement is basically from the shoulder.
Yeah.
Right. And the elbow has to move as well. But yeah, and the Chinese artists do that as well. They also have a very particular way of holding the brush.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a very particular way. Like no, you hold it like this.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, we teach a Western view, so we're constantly telling our students there's not one right way to hold the pencil or the tool. You should experiment with different ways of holding things, even brushes as well.
If you'll stay on this for a second, it's almost like, I don't know, my Western mind says, we need to, we're trained to make it look like this. No, it doesn't matter how you get it to look like that, it needs to look like that, where it seems like in these other traditions, these more deeply historic traditions also, that thrust, that movement from the body is what creates the character, is what creates that aesthetic that you can't get if you're just trying to recreate the thing.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that. So yeah, you're talking about the show of the physical, but I think the Chinese would say, but it's also connected to the mind and to the heart, right? And if it doesn't come from those two places, even if the shoulder's doing what it needs to do, that somehow the end result is lacking in a way, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We could probably open that conversation up more. So, okay. So, in China, you get to see the paper factory, brush factory. You're making art there with local people, with your group.
Yes.
A lot of collaboration, a lot of shared culture. Um, what else? What else was a highlight from that trip?
So one of the highlights for me was just the warmness, the generosity, the open invitation for friendship that we received everywhere we went. It didn't matter what day, the new people we met, they were eager to meet us. They were generous with their time and with their comments, and they all said, "We want to be friends. We don't want this to be the last time that we see you." Right? We want this venture to continue in some way. I've already been invited back to China. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I've been invited back. I was invited to go back in the fall and to bring my wife with me. I don't know that that's possible. We're working on other exhibitions, and I've officially invited Mr. Jai to assemble a group of artists to show at ACU in January.
Cool.
We've got a show scheduled for then, and we're going to work out the details, but I feel very confident we'll do a very similar thing here in Abilene in January with a group of Chinese artists, hopefully as many as 3 or 4, who will come and exhibit with American artists here. And we'll treat them while they're here to local culture, like the storybook capital of Texas, a meal at Perini's, all the things that you should do when you come to Abilene.
We know how to be hospitable here.
Exactly. We know how to be hospitable here. Yeah.
So that'll be fun, and that's already coming up. So it might have taken 4 or 5 years to initially make this connection, but now that it's been made, we're gonna feed the fire.
We're going to feed the fire. Yes, and all kudos to Mr. Jai, because he is incredibly organized. I mean, there were no glitches whatsoever in the things that we did. Everything was planned down to the minute details. I mean, every time we were in a shuttle taking us somewhere, there were bottles of water for us. I mean, every need was taken care of.
Good.
Every place we landed, there was a drink waiting for us, or we were served coffee or tea or whatever. It was amazing. And so he has plans for further development of these kinds of relationships. He wants them for other countries as well. He's already done some. And again, I'm relying on my memory, which might be faulty, but I want to say Belgium. He's done something similar like this with Belgium and with France. He mentioned to me specifically that he'd like to do this with a group of artists from England as well. And I offered, since I know some artists there, I offered to help with that. We'll see where that goes. But yes, with his vision, this is his vision. I think that we'll see more opportunities for this going forward.
I think it's fascinating. It's lovely. It's wonderful, especially when we just live in these crazy times that we live in, when it's so easy to other, especially another country, and we're always China. But they're people. We're artists. We're just people having a human experience.
Right.
And to be able to bring different cultures and traditions together and share and break bread, it's powerful.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did, which really spoke to me about the Chinese people, and their openness to other peoples, and their thinking well of other people. We went to this Air Force museum. And we were taken to a specific location in the museum, a specific historical presentation, and it showed us this leaflet. And we were told the story that during the conflict before World War II broke out, the Japanese had attacked China, and so they were on like warlike terms. And the Chinese had some help with the Americans, and they flew some bomber planes over Japan. They flew a mission over Japan, flew over, but they didn't drop any bombs. What they dropped were leaflets. That's all they did. They dropped leaflets. And the leaflets said, "Do you know what your country is doing in China?" They believed so heavily that the Japanese people would not agree with the kind of things that their government was doing in Japan. And rather than bombing them, they showed goodwill to them and said, "Please do what you can to help us.
Yeah.
To me, that spoke volumes, and that was the treatment we got. They believe the best of the American people, and they expressed that to us, and they feel like, hey, yes, there are tensions between our countries, but ultimately the people of China and the people of America have more in common, right? And we can collaborate and we can have good relationships.
I love that. And so lately in Abilene, as we talk about on this channel and some of these other things, there's AI is the buzz, right?
Right.
AI is the buzz. We're building the Stargate north of town. There's trillions of dollars being invested worldwide on this race,
Yes.
race
Yes.
between what we might have in this country and what China might be building in their country. And I watched a video yesterday that was very sad to think about possible outcomes here. But talking to you makes me think that there is a way forward, whether it's us as artists stepping up and saying, hey, we're just humans,
Yes.
we don't have to be in competition with each other, especially when we're talking about literally creating a godlike mind that neither one of us can even begin to think about what that's going to look like.
Right. Yeah.
And we're in this neck and neck race with this other country, and what does a tie look like?
Right.
Does there have to be a victor?
Yes,
Can't
right.
we all be the victors?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely saw evidence that China is eager to pursue AI, just as the U.S. is. And when we met with the faculty of Anqing Normal University, the dean of their school mentioned to us as we were talking about our different educational approaches in teaching art to our students, she mentioned that she was highly in favor of AI as a tool for artists. And she mentioned specifically that the process of developing, ideating things to present to a client from a graphic design perspective, that because clients often have only vague ideas about what they really want, that an artist can spend a lot of time developing and wasting time developing these different ideas that don't match their. And she said, I can do that with AI. AI can do that work for me. I can present that. Then after that first session, I have a clear vision of what it is they're really looking for, and now I can address that.
Yeah.
So I just saw, that eagerness to use it as a tool. And so, who knows where this all takes us.
We'll have to keep our eyes on it for now anyway. It's just so early on. Interesting. So when you started, I've seen some of your work over an arc of time,
Right.
As an alum at ACU and being around the art department, but then looking at some of this work that you're currently producing that you took with you.
Yes.
And you said it's mostly inspired by Japanese landscape. Is that
Chinese.
true? Chinese landscape.
Yeah. Yes. So about 2006, I had kind of made a shift in the nature of where my art went. I had been using maps. I've always been using maps in my work dating back to about 1987, 86, something like that, when I first came to ACU. But I was collaging the maps into my work and then painting on top of them or drawing on top of them. And I wanted to stop doing that work and do something else, but I was just, how can I continue to use the map? So I got this idea of, I'm going to just borrow the language of maps, the lines, the signage, all of that, with a semiotic way in which a map communicates, imparts information to us. And I'm going to use that, but I'm going to use it for other purposes. I'm not going to make a map. I'm going to make something else. And one of the first ideas that came to me, so like a map is a representation, right, generally of a land mass, right? So in a way, it's a kind of landscape, but it's just more scientific. So I'm going to borrow that, and I'm going to make a pictorial image, right? And I thought, I want to do that in a different way, not in a Western way. So I thought, well, why don't I base it on like a Chinese landscape painting? So one of my earliest pieces was an oil and paper. I didn't look at any Chinese paintings. I worked from my sort of, if you will, a generic, what I'd taken in. And I created a work called Mountain and Sea, and I was thinking about Helen Frankenthaler and one of her very first important paintings where she stained on canvas called Mountain and Sea. So I borrowed the title, but I also connected that theme up with Chinese landscape painting. if I understand this correctly, Chinese landscape painting, the term, you're right, is mountains and water.
Mountains
And water,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what's represented. So I started that, and I thought, hey, after this would seem promising, and so I kind of continued to do that in a really, really abstract way. They don't look like landscapes, but you can look at them and go, yeah, this could be a landscape, right?
Well, I think they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are abstract, and I guess that would probably be the closest. Yeah, like you would say a Chinese landscape. Yes.
Yes,
You
yes.
know,
Right.
it's not really trying to be anything other than that necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the differences is obviously I was looking at models that were in black and white. Typically, if there was color, the color was minimal. So my pieces are full of color. So that's one of the ways in which my work is really more connected to the West and to abstraction in the West than it is to Chinese landscape painting. And so that separates it. But yeah, there's still a spirit of that. And the more I saw promise in this approach, the more I began to look very intently at Chinese landscape. Instead of working from, my past experiences, visiting museums and seeing Chinese work. And I reached a phase in, I want to say around 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, where I decided I wanted to create some pieces that were a direct homage to a specific Chinese landscape painting.
Okay.
So I picked 4 works from that were in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and I created a if you will, a copy, but it's not a copy of that work, and then obviously credited the artist in the title of the work. And the one that's most meaningful to me is one that taps into the history. Chinese landscape painters often did this. They looked back to a prior master and modeled, and did an homage to that artist's work. And so one of the pieces I chose to copy was a work that was an homage to a previous artist dating back, I want to say, maybe to the 12th century. And so I was the 3rd generation of artists to reach back all the way into that history to create a new version. So that was very meaningful to me, and I love the painting as well.
That's great. And you're still continuing to work in this theme.
Yes,
now.
I am.
Yeah.
So most recently, I've been working on a theme called a deluge, right? So I think this happened around 2020 or so. So all of my pieces are still landscapes, but it's a landscape which is in the process of a flood.
Okay.
And so part of the connection here was thinking about the biblical flood, but it was also just floods. I mean, my parents and my in-laws both lived in Houston during Harvey, and both of them had their homes flooded.
Oh.
So that brought to reality, the impact of flooding, which I think we're all confident we're going to see more of, not less of, in the future. And I thought this is something that can be both, it's a reference to the past, but it's also sort of prophetic as well for our future. And so I've been working on deluge themes for since then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your process like? I mean, you've shared some of your inspiration and sort of where you're at now thematically in your paintings, but as you approach a new piece, are you still using a map at this point?
So I'm always looking at maps.
Okay.
I'm always looking at maps. But I'll start a piece, every piece is different, but I'll start a piece and generally I have some sort of a theme in mind or something that I haven't explored that I want to explore. So a couple of recent pieces. One, I wanted to do a scene which was a flood that happened during the winter, like snowmelt flood, right? So a heavy season of snow, and then the flood is caused by the snowmelt. So I did a scene, a painting of that. Immediately prior to that, I returned to a theme that I hadn't done in a really long time. I wanted to do a nocturne or a night scene. So I did a night scene flood, so it's called a nocturne deluge.
Okay.
And then I did what I considered to be a more heroic piece, which I've yet to share in an exhibition, and which is not on the material I
slides,
provided
yep.
for you. It's called Eternal Deluge.
Okay.
And it is a 16-foot-long painting, and it's a continuous image. So the left side of the image connects up with the right side so that it's a continuously changing deluge.
That's
And it took me quite a while to complete that painting. I did it on 4 panels so that I could move the panels around and reconnect them in order to create the connections between the pieces so it's continuous. And in order to give it, so when you see it in person, you can't see that because it's in a fixed position. But I had a colleague named Amos Gutierrez who did a video of it for me. So it's an unending video, an eternal deluge.
I like that.
Yeah.
Will we get a chance to see that at some point?
Yes, in an exhibition.
Okay.
Yes, I'm looking for the right opportunity. A group exhibition like we've got coming up in January, I do not want to take up 16 feet of wall
Yeah,
space.
it's a little
Yes,
selfish, maybe.
so yes, it's a selfish move. So that won't happen anytime soon. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So what else are you working on right now?
So right now I'm between projects and painting. I've been doing some smaller pieces because my chair duties and this exhibition and other exhibitions in the planning are taking up my time. So I'm not in the studio that much right now. But I did complete some really small. I began a series of what I call small deluge paintings, which are just like 8.5 by 5.5.
Okay.
And a couple of the pieces that I showed in China were those pieces because they were easy to transport.
Easy to travel with.
Easy to travel
Absolutely.
with. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And it sounds like you've got some good visions moving forward with the art department at ACU.
Yes. So we've got this exhibition coming up. We're going to have a faculty exhibition for our homecoming show this year. So I'm looking forward to presenting some new work that my students haven't seen, and my colleagues will do the same. So we're always excited to show what we've been working on in the studio with our students because they don't often get to see that. So we've got that coming up. We've got a group of students who've been studying abroad in Leipzig, Germany, with my colleague Kelly Mann, and they're going to have a show of their works that they produced while they were over in Leipzig coming up in November. So yeah, those are some exciting things on our plate this year.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And wow, 40 years at ACU. And so you've been in Abilene for 40 years then too.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Since
And
1985.
before we started the show today, we were talking with our producer extraordinaire Sam that you live downtown also.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Just a few blocks from here.
Yeah, it was walkable. Yeah.
It was walkable.
Yeah.
And so you've seen a lot of change happen downtown.
Absolutely. Yeah. So downtown was already becoming a vibrant hub by the time we moved downtown, and what brought us here was an old house with more space and with a lot of charm. And so we've been here a good long time and seen the changing developments, the excitement of building a new downtown hotel, the DoubleTree, and all the developments there, and really close to my house, the Peacock Bar that went into what used to be a funeral home. I mean, the transformations, distillery down here.
Yep.
Yeah, the transformations have been just enormous. Yeah.
So does that make you feel like you're going to stay in your desk downtown for the next 10 or 20 years?
So I don't know. I'm coming close to retirement, and so my wife and I are thinking about our options going forward. So
Whether you stay or go.
whether we stay or go. So we've enjoyed our time in downtown Abilene. We've definitely enjoyed our years in this home. It's been a good home for us, and it has a lot of it's got Abilene history in it. It dates all the way back to 1914.
Wow.
And it was a home. It was a Wooten home, not the Wooten Hotel, but the brother of that Wooten. And so it's got a great history in Abilene.
It's very cool. And you have children.
Yes, I have 2 sons.
And they were raised in that home?
They were raised in that home. So we had another home before that. So I think we moved when they were about in middle school years. So they spent their middle and high school years in that home. Yeah.
Did they go to Lincoln?
Let's see. So they went to for middle school. They went to Abilene Christian Schools.
Okay.
And went to and also high school and graduated from there. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. It's fun because I've only been in Abilene for 25 years, but that's apparently long enough to see big changes in history here. And talking to people that went to Lincoln Middle School right there at the bottom of Grape. I think Sam, I think you went there, and then it sat vacant forever, and now they're pouring
Yes.
a lot of love and money into that
Absolutely,
to make a
yeah.
neat
Yeah, it sat
center.
idle for so many years, and I knew that there were so many, struggles to converting it. I'm sure it was full of asbestos and other
I'm
kinds
sure.
of
I'm sure.
toxic things
Yep.
because it's been around for so long. So yeah, it's been a heroic effort to by Abilene officials to and forward thinkers to make this happen. So it's amazing. Looking forward to that, becoming complete. Yeah.
It'll be great. I'm
Yeah.
sure there'll be plenty of gallery space in there. I would
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
What are some things that you would like to see happen in Abilene?
So I definitely like to see the continuation of things, further development of the storybook capital and the downtown garden space, where new space is going to be added to that. That's really exciting.
Did you have a chance to see Nick Noblique's new work installed?
I have. I haven't seen it installed. No,
Okay.
I saw so I serve, because of my role as chair, I serve on a committee that vets those things for the city and Abilene Cultural Affairs Council, and got to see the model of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're excited about that.
It looks great. We
Yeah.
went and watched it get installed
Yeah.
this past Tuesday. And
Yeah.
it looks this past Tuesday? A week
Is that
ago Tuesday.
so?
Maybe.
It was installed.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
okay.
At least
so
the
I
phase
just
one, the
yeah.
three major pieces of that
Oh,
Giving Tree
fantastic.
sculpture.
Well,
have
I'll
been
definitely
tied
make
down.
a walk by
Yeah.
there on my way home.
It looks great.
So yeah, I bet it does. The other thing that I definitely want to see continue because of its historic nature is the Abilene Outdoor Sculpture Exhibition that's been going on for, I don't know, it's closing in on 40 years or something like that. Lynn Barnett's been involved with that. I can't say enough about how important Lynn Barnett has been for the ACU
She's huge.
community and to the arts in Abilene. I mean, we owe her a debt of gratitude. She's just amazing. And
She does good
you've
job.
hosted her before
Yep,
quite fittingly. Yes.
She's wonderful, and
Yes.
we'll get her back on when we can.
Yeah.
Speaking of the outdoor sculpture, right now besides our gardens that we have, our various storybook gardens, which are mostly bronze,
Yeah.
there's this sort of the strip between North and South First. With, I want to say that those are curated, but I also see pieces that have been there for a very long time.
Right.
Some pieces that need some TLC.
Right. Yes.
Some need a fresh coat of paint.
Right. Yes.
But I've always wondered, and this is a bit of a criticism, but I've always thought that that's not the best space for art in our community because we're driving 45 miles an hour by it all the time.
Right.
There's not an opportunity to get out, to get
Right.
close to the piece.
Right.
Where, I mean, I'm going to pick on my alma mater, ACU.
Yeah.
We've got this beautiful 2.5 mile walking trail all around campus.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't it be nice to have some designated spots for some more pieces that
Right.
maybe could get
Absolutely.
cycled in and out, so we're not
Yeah,
always seeing the
absolutely.
same thing
Yeah.
either. I don't know.
I agree. I think that, like I'd love to. It's a bit of a challenge even to walk over and get close to those sculptures. You have to see them driving by in
Yeah.
the car, which is not the best experience. I think that they should remain there because I do think it helps beautify that
Absolutely.
area, but it shouldn't be the exclusive location for a set of sculptures. So
Right.
maybe a sculpture garden, like the storybook sculpture garden, is the next order of business.
So, the town I grew up in is Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
done some incredible work with sculpture. Maybe in the last 10 or 15 years, it hasn't been that long, but every year they vet and curate sculpture. I want to say mostly within that region.
Yeah.
Mostly, but and they just opened it up again for this season. But there's maybe 100 different pieces. That might be too
Yeah.
many, but there's
Yeah.
dozens and dozens of pieces
Right.
that are given a spot in front of the bank, a spot in front of the brewery, a spot, but all over downtown.
Right,
and there's
right.
maps that list it and who the artist is. And
Right.
Everything's
A walking
for sale.
tour. Yeah.
And they work really hard to make sure that everything gets sold, which
Yeah.
is great for the artist. And
Right.
I'm sure there's some nonprofit and things like this, but I would love to see us do more of that in Abilene, to have
Yes.
more engaging. I love our storybook gardens, don't get me wrong, but I want to connect the storybook gardens with
Yeah.
individual pieces that
Right.
maybe are a little bit more contemporary
Yeah.
sometimes, or pushing what we're used to seeing aesthetically here.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I definitely agree with that. I would say another thing that I think it's the next step for Abilene. So one of the things that's always been disappointing for me is that while Abilene supports the art, like the Center for Contemporary Art, the Grace Museum, they support the institutions that present art, and they see that it's in a really important part of West Texas and of this area, and we've got great artists. But people in Abilene don't buy art.
No.
They don't buy art. And so in a sense, they support the idea of art, but they don't support artists. Right?
Yep.
So I really think that the Abilene community has the capacity to do that because they clearly believe in the arts and in the value of the arts here in Abilene. They come to our exhibitions, they pat us on the back, but that next step would really be helpful because it's really hard for artists to make a living and keep buying those expensive supplies and keep producing. That little bit of extra encouragement as well as support would be very appreciated.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I've always wondered ever since I've been here about where are the people that support the artists?
Yes.
We do support the arts, and we have tons of great opportunities here. But as a working artist in this community, not being associated with an institution that's writing my salary, it's very much an uphill battle. And then to be relevant, like Abilene, Houston, Austin, DFW, okay, now you've got some glitz on your pants, but Abilene, So I agree with you. If there were a way for us to continue to encourage those with, even if it's not a big pocketbook, but just go out and support the artists at People Parties Plaza or wherever they may be that are trying to create and put food on their table.
Absolutely. So it speaks very highly of the artists in Abilene that they've been as committed to Abilene as they have. Without that, it's that sort of financial backing. Because as you say, the draw for going to Houston, going to Dallas, going to Austin, places where an artist can be more successful in terms of sales of their work, there's a absolute draw there, right? Why stay here? Why not go elsewhere? So it says a lot about the artists and their belief and their persistence. And but I hope that's something that's on the horizon for artists.
I hope so too, for all of us.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, sir, I've really enjoyed having a little conversation pit with you today.
Me too.
Are there some other things that we need to touch on that we didn't get to cover?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Let me just say again that my trip to China was amazing. I'm very thankful to the Chinese, to Madam Chen from the Minister of Culture and Tourism in the Chinese Embassy at Washington, D.C., and to Mr. Jai, and to all of our other hosts, the Jiangsu Chinese Painting Society, for their absolute magnanimous treatment of us, for the exhibition. It was amazing. For the opportunity to make art with Chinese artists and to see the results of that. All of that was just fantastic, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm also thankful for ACU and their support of this project and their encouragement of me and Kenny Jones. Hey, go do this. This is important. So.
Well, I'm really grateful that you guys did, and grateful that you came on the show to share that with us, and just to have a small little part in maybe some sort of cultural, artistic unity moving forward. That I'd rather much build something more positive.
Absolutely.
So I
agree.
think it's really incredible that you were able to do that.
Well, I encourage you and your listeners to keep their eye out for an exhibition in January. Okay. I'm hoping that there will be a delegation of about 4 Chinese artists who will be in Abilene for a few days. There'll be invitations to events. We're going to have some events at the Grace Museum. Okay. One of them will be like a public dialogue where the artists will talk about their different approaches and general public can ask questions. There'll be one of the artists will conduct a workshop to teach Chinese painting methods. Maybe you'd like to take part in that. And there'll be some other events that we'll develop, as we get closer. And so, I'd encourage people to come out for that. It's going to be, it could be a once in a lifetime opportunity.
It's pretty
for
neat.
The people of Abilene. So
and
we're excited
what
about
a cool thing to be able to host that here.
Absolutely,
also, and give back to what you just experienced. Well, I'm excited about that. As we get closer to those dates, if you want to come back on or share that information and we can help get it out in our small little way.
Fantastic. I would be happy to do that. Yeah.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for being on the show today.
you.
That's an awkward shake, but we're
Yeah.
going to make it happen.
Very
And
worth it. Yeah.
hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Come down Thursday mornings, grab a cup of coffee next door, and come on in and sit down and listen to us in our little conversation pit talking about things artistic and not, and all things Abilene, storybook capital of America. Thank you guys for watching today. Tune in next week. I've got another great guest lined up. Robert Green, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Till next week.